Hey everybody, welcome back to my videos. My name is Eric McGrew with Eric's Tree Service in Montrose, Colorado. Also, this video is brought to you by Gap Arborist Supply. Their hashtag is off the hinge, and you can reach them at gaparboristsupply.com. Go check out what they're offering, as well as this is being brought to you by weaverarborist.com. Go check out their new cavern gear bag, and also check out their Pro Cool spike pads. Those things are awesome. They're lightweight, they breathe well. I like the Weaver's throw bags, and they also have some leather scabbards to help protect your pole saws and things. So go check out weaverarborist.com as well. You can also buy Weaver product at Gap Arborist Supply. All right guys, so today we're going to talk about this very commonly used and simple device. I know most of you guys have seen it, you know what it is. But here's the thing, accidents with these things are fairly common, and beyond being somewhat common, the fact is a lot of the accidents that I see could easily be prevented to the most degree. So why are these accidents occurring then? Well, it's because you put a lot of stress on these devices when you use them. I mean, they get really bound with tension, and then when they let go with a fierceness. So what can you do to prevent these accidents then? Well, a couple of things. One that seems simple that you may not even think of is keep an eye on this boot. If this little rubber cap on the bottom gets worn and you're working on concrete, it will slip easily, and then when you put tension, it could slip out. So you might want to put your foot behind it or just replace that pole, whatever, so that it doesn't move when you're pulling on it. Just an idea there. But then also keep in mind that each of these bracket pieces, these collars, they're all attached via rivets, right? So these are fiberglass poles, and fiberglass has a tendency to fracture and stress fatigue with reoccurring stress in key points. And when you use aluminum or steel or any kind of metal that's harder than the fiberglass is, and you keep fatiguing it, they tend to fracture right around those pieces. So there could be fractures occurring that you can't see in there that are making this loose. So check your collars, make sure they're not loose on these, make sure that they're safe, make sure that they're clipped in appropriately. If it's not clipped in, if it's like this, it's not good. You need to make sure that they're clipped in. Once they're clipped in, it's going to have a little bit of play. Make sure it's not too much play. That just magnifies forces, and it's not good, and it's going to be a potential fatigue and failure point. Same thing up here on the top collar. Make sure that that's okay. Check your poles. Make sure your poles don't have any sun cracking or anything from UV. Make sure that they don't have any wear spots where maybe where they were laying in the truck and vibration driving down the road has started to wear through the fiberglass. Make sure they don't have any stress fatigues on either of the poles. Remember, these poles originally were, I think, Fred Marvin style poles, and they were intended for pole saw work. That's what they were intended for. They really weren't intended for this. It's been adapted to it and it works well, but just know they are just simply fiberglass poles. So they're fairly rigid. They do flex a little bit, but at certain levels they just tend to let go. So keep that in mind. Make sure that you're checking for where, if there's a hole, a fracture, or if there is a notable indention from where it's been worn on metal or anything, you need to replace that pole, get a new pole. Also, when you're dealing with the head, make sure the head is also clipped in. Don't let it be sitting out like that because somebody didn't clip it, or don't let the head be too far up and therefore it doesn't clip in. Make sure it's clipped, okay? This thing can and has slipped out of its collar and hit people. Don't take that for granted. Yeah, it's a long insert, but it can happen in weird circumstances. Pay attention. Know where it should sit. Make sure it's sitting down in there. If you just grab the pole because somebody else assembled it and the head's way out here, there's not enough of the shank down in there to keep it stable. Don't use it. Pay attention to this thing. It's very dangerous. If you haven't, go online, look up Facebook groups and Instagram photos, and you will see people's faces where it's actually fractured their jaw and some their skull. You'll see helmets that have been hit by these things, and the helmet's just got a hole in it, it's fractured, it's cracked from where this thing came back and hit them when they were under full load and they were not expecting it. So that brings me to the next point, not just inspecting it, which is important, but also way of using it, the method you use it. So I see people using it like this a lot, and you can do whatever you want. I mean, that's up to you. But here's the thing, if you're pulling this like this and it lets go, this is not going to just come straight down this way. It's going to pop over like this, and you're in the direction of its path, most likely, especially if you're shooting and you're looking, you're like this, it's going to pretty much be a guaranteed smack in the cranium, in your face, your head, something. Make sure you always have your helmet on and safety glasses. Do not put your helmet off to the side and grab a ball cap. That is not a good idea with these things. These things have a lot of power behind them, and when they let go, it's not cool, okay? So I always use mine under. Why? Well, yeah, the bag tends to fall out a little bit more sometimes or whatever, but if this comes off, most likely it's going to hit me in the kneecaps or the shins, which isn't great, but it's a lot better than in my head or in my face, okay? So keep that in mind. Also, when you're doing your inspection on this, make sure you inspect everything. Make sure you inspect the rubber bands. Make sure you inspect the stitching and these knots. Make sure you inspect the handle. Make sure you roll these back a little bit and check for any fractures right at the weld seam. So we're not talking about on the weld itself, we're talking about just beside the weld. Make sure there's no fracturing in any of these cases. Do check the weld itself as well. Make sure there's no fracturing in this. If there is, do not take a chance and keep using it. Stop using it. Get a new head or get it repaired. I would recommend a new head because I don't know what kind of quality metal they've used on this. If these arms have gotten bent really badly because they had like a log land on them or something like that, don't bend them back and then go back to using it. It has reduced the strength of this exponentially. I can't tell you how much it's reduced, but I can tell you it's a lot. I wouldn't feel safe using it, and you shouldn't either, because that's what causes these stress fatigues. And then even if you bend it back and it seems to hold, at some point those fractures can continue and it could just shear off and come back and pop you. Here on the bottom areas of the elbows here, if you want to call it that, check for wear in the rubber there. Sometimes they get little flat spots because you lay them down on the ground and they get drug, or you lay them in the back of the truck and they rub, and the surface that they're touching abrades them and flattens them and makes that wall thinner. Don't use it if that's the case. If the rubber is dry rotted, don't use it. If it has a pinhole in it, do not use it. Get a new head and be safe with these. I'm telling you, you could spend a whole day in the hospital because of this and not be able to work for weeks. And one guy was telling me he even got a concussion from one of these when it popped on him. So I always recommend, and look, this is just my opinion, so just know that. I always recommend under, and always do an inspection, okay? Also, not only do you have to worry about these coming off and hitting you, but always wear your safety glasses in your helmets, because once you've shot the bag and it comes, it could swing around under certain circumstances and hit you, and that thing is not good either. Also seen photos and videos of people getting fractured faces, cheekbones, jaws, different things. One guy lost vision in one of his eyes because a throwback hit them, and the guy that lost the vision in his eye, he wasn't even using a BigShot. He threw it by hand. It got stuck in the tree. He was pulling it, trying to get it out. It wouldn't come out. He turned around. He fixed his line. He turned back. He pulled, and it came out, and it hit him right in the eyeball, and he didn't have any safety glasses or a helmet on, and he lost his vision. So keep this stuff in mind. It's really a simple tool. We get overly complacent with them, but don't. They are seriously dangerous. So use them as they're intended, but also do your maintenance and your pre-inspection checks. Now, ideally we would check them before every, in between every use. We don't do that, let's face it. But at least every time you pick it up for the first time, check it. Make sure that whoever put it together, if it wasn't you, did it right. And if you did do it, double check it. Make sure everything is right and be safe with these things. They're great, great tools. I actually had an air cannon. I prefer this over the air cannon. I quit using my air cannon, but they're still dangerous tools, so you have to respect them and know how to use them. So don't forget to check out gaparborsupply.com. Also, don't forget to check out weaverarborist.com. Don't forget to leave me a comment. What did I miss? What would you like to hear me go over next? And I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks. Bye.